The officers' club fell silent as the woman calmly spoke a single word: ghost. The hotshot pilot froze mid-boast, his cocky grin vanishing as color drained from his face. He stumbled toward his squadron leader, whispering urgently in panic. Across the room, veteran aviators stopped their conversations, drinks forgotten, all eyes turning toward the corner booth. The call sign everyone whispered about, but no one had ever seen. Now spoken by the unassuming blonde, they'd all dismissed as just another base civilian. Welcome to Secrets Never Told. Before we begin this story of hidden excellence and shattered assumptions, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe true legends often hide in plain sight, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who earned their wings the hard way. The Thunderbird Officers Club at Nellis Air Force Base hummed with Friday evening energy. Pilots celebrated missions while veteran aviators shared war stories over whiskey. Colonel Marcus Hawk Harrison observed from his corner booth, weathered face calm after 20 years flying fighters. Beside him sat Major Elena Viper Santos, whose quiet demeanor concealed her legendary status among those who knew her black operations record. Harrison followed her gaze to Captain Tyler Maverick Brooks, a 28-year-old hotshot who'd finished first in Navy pilot training before transferring. Devastatingly handsome with movie star looks and matching ego, Brooks dominated conversations while dramatically recounting dogfights. 6 bandits on my tail, RWR screaming. Brooks's voice carried across the club. Towers calling RTB, but I'm not backing down. Pulled a split S that would make Yeager proud. Splash 4, the other two bugged out. His fellow pilots nodded appreciatively while Harrison and Santos exchanged knowing glances. Every squadron had at least one Brooks, someone who confused simulator victories with real combat experience. The club's front door opened, admitting a strikingly beautiful woman in her early 30s. Platinum blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, athletic build, wearing civilian clothes, dark jean, leather jacket, boots. Nothing suggested military affiliation, yet Harrison noticed how she scanned the room with practiced awareness. She selected a table near the back, ordered vodka neat, and settled quietly. Brooks approached with performative swagger. You look lost. Beautiful, he announced. This is where Air Force pilots hang out. We fly the fastest jets in the world. Just got back from combat deployment myself. The woman gave him a measured look, but continued sipping her vodka without engaging. Brooks pressed further. What brings a gorgeous woman like you to a place like this? Looking to meet a real aviator? She remained focused on her drink, which only increased his determination. Strong, silent type, huh? Brooks continued, leaning closer. I'm curious, what's your call sign? Oh wait, civilians don't have those. The question was deliberately provocative, designed to emphasize her outsider status in this aggressively masculine aviation environment. Several nearby conversations quieted as pilots anticipated her embarrassment or retreat. The woman paused, studying Brooks for a moment before answering with quiet clarity. Ghost. The single word landed with devastating impact. Brooks's smirk froze, then crumbled as confusion replaced his cockiness. Around them, veteran pilots who had overheard stopped mid-conversation, heads turning toward the back table. I'm sorry, what? Brooks stammered, his confidence evaporating. You asked my call sign, she replied calmly. It's Ghost. Brooks retreated to his group, whispering urgently as bewilderment spread across their young faces. Major Santos and Colonel Harrison exchanged significant glances, both aviators suddenly alert in an entirely different way. Ghost? One pilot laughed nervously. Like a phantom or something? No, another corrected, his expression growing serious as recognition dawned. Like the Ghost, the Black Ops pilot from Syria. Throughout the club, experienced aviators reacted with subtle recognition. Some straightened in seats, others averted their eyes respectfully. The casual atmosphere shifted into something more formal. A pilot whispered to his companion, "Can't be the same Ghost? That's just a legend." His friend replied quietly, "The legend is real. 12 air-to-air kills, 0 losses, missions that never officially happened." Brooks approached Colonel Gunslinger Davis, a silver-haired squadron commander known for zero tolerance of pilot antics. "Colonel," Brooks began hesitantly, "that woman claims to be Ghost. That's impossible, right?" Davis studied the woman carefully. "What makes you certain it's impossible, Captain?" "Well, because Ghost is. Everyone knows Ghost is." "What?" Davis pressed with steel in his voice. Brooks finally managed, "One of us, a fighter pilot." "And what exactly do you think you're looking at?" Davis asked with deadly quiet. The question forced Brooks to confront the assumptions he'd made based on nothing more than gender and civilian clothes. He turned back toward the woman, seeing her now through a lens of growing uncertainty. Gathering remaining confidence, Brooks returned to the woman, energy completely changed, swagger gone, replaced by defensive caution. "No disrespect intended, ma'am," he began carefully, "but Ghost is a call sign associated with classified air operation. If you're using it as some joke." The woman gave him full attention, setting down her glass with precision. "Operation Nighthawk, Syria 2019, she stated matter-of-factly. 12 enemy aircraft engaged at night over hostile territory. You were briefed on outcome, not the pilot." The specificity silenced him. These were details only someone with highest security clearance would know. She continued clearly. "Operation Desert Phantom, Yemen 2020. Stealth penetration of S-400 coverage. Precision strikes on high-value targets. The enemy never knew what hit them." Brooks stared speechlessly as the implications cascaded through his understanding. Every legendary story he'd heard about Ghost, the impossible stealth missions, the perfect air-to-air record, the operations where entire enemy air defenses were neutralized without ever detecting the threat, all attributed to a faceless pilot he had automatically assumed was male. "That was you," he finally managed. "That was my aircraft," she corrected. "I was the one flying it." By now, the entire club had fallen silent. Colonel Harrison rose from his booth, approaching with measured military bearing. Brooks stepped back as Harrison stopped at regulation distance from the woman's table. "Colonel," she acknowledged, without standing. "General," he replied, revealing her superior rank. In a move that shocked the room, Harrison rendered a perfect military salute to the seated woman. "Thunderbolt sends his regards," he said, referencing a 4-star general. "At ease, Colonel," she responded, confirming her identity beyond doubt. The salute triggered a wave of recognition throughout the club. One by one, veteran pilots who understood the significance rose from their seats, not approaching, but standing briefly at attention before returning to their drinks. This subtle demonstration of respect was more powerful than any dramatic confrontation could have been. Brooks remained frozen, witnessing a complete transformation in how everyone in the room perceived the woman he had attempted to charm and humiliate. She was Brigadier General Sarah Ghost Mitchell, the pilot behind the call sign that had achieved mythical status within the air combat community. Colonel Davis approached, placing a firm hand on Brooks's shoulder. "There's your first real lesson as an Air Force pilot, Captain," he said quietly. "Never judge an aviator by anything but their flight record." Colonel Harrison joined General Mitchell at her table, their conversation quiet and professional. Brooks returned to his group of pilots, visibly humbled by the encounter. "Was that really the Ghost?" Morrison whispered. "General Mitchell," another pilot corrected, having overheard Harrison's exchange. "Apparently she commands the Pentagon's Classified Stealth Operations Division." The club gradually returned to normal activity, though with subtle differences in atmosphere and seating arrangements. The invisible hierarchy had shifted, respect redistributed based on earned credentials rather than assumptions. Brooks watched as various senior officers stopped briefly by Mitchell's table throughout the evening. Each interaction was brief but laden with mutual professional regard. After several minutes of internal struggle, Brooks approached Harrison and Mitchell again, waiting for a natural break in their conversation before speaking. "Colonel Harrison, may I have a moment?" he asked with formal correctness. Harrison looked to Mitchell, who nodded slightly. "General Mitchell," Brooks began, his voice steady despite his obvious discomfort. "I owe you an apology. My behavior was unprofessional and disrespectful. Your service record speaks for itself. Your behavior was human, Captain," she replied without condescension. "Assumptions are natural. Questioning them shows character." "I'd like to learn from this mistake, General," Brooks said with genuine humility. "Then listen more than you talk," she advised. "The best pilots I know spend twice as much time observing as they do speaking." It was simple guidance delivered without malice. Professional mentorship rather than personal rebuke. "Thank you, General," Brooks said, offering a respectful nod before withdrawing. As Brooks rejoined his increasingly subdued group of fellow pilots, he found himself reassessing everything he thought he understood about military aviation. Throughout training, instructors had emphasized that flying was the ultimate meritocracy, where performance was the only currency that mattered. Yet he had instantly dismissed the possibility that Ghost could be a woman. The contradiction was uncomfortable but necessary to confront. "What did she say?" Morrison asked when Brooks returned. "She told me to listen more than I talk," Brooks replied, the simplicity of the advice resonating more deeply than he had expected. For the remainder of the evening, the pilot's previously boisterous corner remained unusually thoughtful. They watched as General Mitchell completed her drink with the same quiet efficiency she had displayed throughout the encounter. Nothing in her demeanor sought attention or validation, yet she had commanded the respect of every aviator in the facility simply by being who she was. In the days that followed, Brooks found himself increasingly curious about Mitchell's career trajectory and the classified operations division she apparently directed. Most of his attempts to gather information hit walls of security clearances and need-to-know restrictions, but fragments and rumors circulated within the aviation community. "I heard she was recruited from Navy test pilots," one senior officer claimed during a briefing. "Wrong service," corrected another. "Air Force Academy valedictorian. They've been grooming her for black programs since commissioning." What little concrete information Brooks could gather painted a picture of an exceptional pilot who had earned her position through demonstrable excellence rather than accommodation or policy changes. The realization that such capabilities had existed within the Air Force without his knowledge was humbling. 2 weeks after the encounter at the club, Brooks' squadron was conducting advanced air combat training over the Nevada test range. As they prepared for beyond visual range engagement exercises, Brooks noticed unusual activity at a restricted section of the airspace. Aircraft conducting what appeared to be stealth penetration drills with equipment configurations he hadn't seen before. "Who's running that exercise?" he asked the range controller, Captain William. "That would be General Mitchell's development unit," Williams replied without surprise. "They're testing next-generation stealth protocols for contested airspace." Brooks observed the distant contrails with newfound professional interest. Even from miles away, he could see the precision and discipline in their formations, a testament to rigorous training and experienced leadership. "They're maintaining radar silence better than our best stealth pilots," Brooks admitted, noting the complete absence of electronic emissions from their aircraft. "That's because they can't afford the detection signatures we tolerate from training units," Williams said matter-of-factly. "Their missions require absolute invisibility. When General Mitchell deploys, the enemy never knows they've been engaged until the target is already destroyed." The casual confirmation that Mitchell still flew operational missions, sorties that required the highest level of piloting skill and security clearance, shifted Brooks's perspective further. This wasn't just about challenging his gender assumptions. It was about recognizing levels of capability he hadn't known existed within his own service. Later that week, Colonel Harrison summoned Brooks to his office for what the captain assumed would be a routine performance evaluation. Instead, Harrison presented him with an unexpected opportunity. "Captain," Harrison began once Brooks was seated, "I've received a training request that might interest you. General Mitchell has asked for qualified pilots to participate in an advanced stealth tactics course. She specifically requested personnel with strong fundamentals and demonstrated learning ability, rather than just experience." Brooks waited, uncertain where this was leading. "Your scores from pilot training were exceptional," Harrison continued. "But I'll be direct. Your interaction with General Mitchell made me question your readiness for advanced classified training." "I understand, sir. However," Harrison leaned forward, "your response afterward suggested someone capable of growth. General Mitchell herself noted that your apology was genuine rather than perfunctory. The information that Mitchell had discussed him with Harrison was unexpected. Brooks had assumed the incident was closed, a learning experience best forgotten. "I'm asking directly," Harrison concluded. "Are you interested in stealth pilot training, understanding that it will challenge more than just your flying skills?" "Absolutely, sir," Brooks responded without hesitation. "I'd consider it both a professional opportunity and a chance to demonstrate I can learn from mistakes." Harrison nodded, apparently satisfied with the response. "Report to Hangar 7 on Monday at 0500. This training is compartmentalized, Captain. No discussion with your squadron about specific techniques or capabilities." The following Monday, Brooks arrived at the designated hangar 30 minutes early, finding it occupied by a group of pilots he didn't recognize. Some wore standard flight suits, others specialized gear that suggested test pilot or development roles. All moved with the quiet confidence of proven aviators. General Mitchell entered precisely at 0500, accompanied by a senior pilot Brooks didn't know, a woman whose bearing and confident movement marked her as an experienced stealth operator. "Good morning," Mitchell addressed the assembled group. "For those who don't know me, I'm General Sarah Mitchell. This is Colonel Maria Rodriguez, my senior training officer." She surveyed the room with the same calm, assessing gaze Brooks had witnessed at the club. "You've been selected for this program because your commanding officers believe you have both the technical foundation and the mental discipline required for stealth operations in contested environments." Mitchell nodded to Colonel Rodriguez, who activated a display showing complex radar signatures and electronic warfare scenarios Brooks had never encountered in training. "This is advanced stealth penetration theory," Rodriguez explained. "Today, we'll cover electromagnetic spectrum management, adaptive camouflage systems, and psychological factors that affect performance in denied airspace." Throughout the briefing, Brooks noticed something significant about Mitchell's leadership style. While she clearly commanded absolute authority in the room, room. She frequently deferred to Rodriguez on specific technical points and acknowledged other instructors' expertise in certain areas. It was leadership through competence rather than rank alone. As they prepared for the first simulator session, Colonel Rodriguez approached Brooks. "Captain Brooks," she said professionally, "General Mitchell suggested pairing you with Major Chen for the initial training. She thought your air-to-air background might complement his stealth penetration experience." The assignment to work directly with one of Mitchell's pilots was unexpected but welcome. Major David Chen, Brooks soon learned, had been with the stealth development program for 2 years and possessed a level of tactical knowledge that spoke to hundreds of hours of classified training. "First time with the Black World?" Chen asked as they prepared their simulators. "Yes," Brooks admitted. "I wasn't aware programs like this existed." Chen nodded, unsurprised. "That's intentional. We operate more effectively when adversaries don't expect our capabilities." "How long has the program existed?" Brooks ventured, curious whether Chen would share information. "Officially or unofficially?" Chen replied with a slight smile that suggested a longer history than public records would show. "Let's just say General Mitchell wasn't the first stealth pilot, just the most effective at proving what's possible in contested airspace." Throughout the day, Brooks observed Mitchell's program closely, noting how they integrated standard Air Force tactics with advanced techniques that utilized cutting-edge technology and specialized equipment. It wasn't about different standards, but about optimized performance for specific mission parameters. During a challenging exercise involving penetration of integrated air defense systems, Brooks found himself hesitating at a critical decision point, unsure which approach would be most effective given multiple threat radars and time constraints. General Mitchell, observing from the instruction booth, stepped in over the intercom. "What's your assessment, Captain?" "Standard doctrine would be to suppress air defenses before penetration," he replied. "But that reveals our presence and eliminates stealth advantage. So, what's your alternative?" Brooks considered the specialized equipment Chen's aircraft carried and the techniques he'd observed. "Use terrain masking and electronic countermeasures to create a penetration corridor without active suppression." "Correct," Mitchell's voice came through clearly. "Adapt to mission requirements rather than following doctrine blindly. The manual provides foundation, not absolute law." By day's end, Brooks had gained not just new technical skills, but a transformed understanding of what air power could achieve in the right hands. Mitchell's program wasn't succeeding despite being different from traditional Air Force training. They were succeeding because their differences created advantages in specific operational scenarios. As training concluded, General Mitchell pulled Brooks aside. "Your performance today was solid, Captain. Colonel Harrison was right about your potential." "Thank you, General. This training opened my eyes to capabilities I didn't know existed." Mitchell studied him for a moment. "The incident at the club, I could have identified myself immediately and ended your approach." "Why didn't you, General?" Brooks asked, the question that had lingered since that evening. "2 reasons," she replied. "First, in stealth operations, being underestimated is often a tactical advantage. Second, I was curious how you'd respond when your assumptions were challenged. That tells me more about a pilot's character than any flight evaluation." The insight struck Brooks as profound, applicable not just to military aviation, but to leadership and personal growth more broadly. He'd been tested not on his initial reaction, but on his capacity to learn when presented with new information. "I'd like to continue this training, General," he said simply. "Today showed me how much more there is to learn about air warfare." "That's a good foundation," she acknowledged. "Recognizing the limits of your knowledge is the first step toward expanding it." 1 month later, Brooks found himself in a briefing room at the test pilot school, attending an advanced tactics seminar that was part of his professional development. The instructor, a decorated colonel, was discussing adaptive leadership in complex operational environments. "Today, we have a guest instructor with unique experience in leading classified units under demanding conditions," the colonel announced. "General Mitchell will be discussing leadership principles derived from her operational experience." The door opened and General Mitchell entered, now in service dress uniform displaying her ribbons and qualifications, including decorations Brooks was only beginning to understand the significance of. Recognition dawned on several faces in the room, but no one spoke out of turn. "Some of you I've encountered before," she acknowledged, with a glance toward Brooks. "Today we'll discuss leadership lessons learned from operations where failure meant mission compromise and potential loss of life." Throughout the session, Brooks observed her with deeper understanding, seeing not just her technical expertise, but her approach to developing others, the way she created environments where people could recognize their own potential. During a case study discussion, Brooks's group found themselves analyzing a leadership scenario involving difficult decisions under extreme pressure. "You're overthinking the problem, Captain," Mitchell said, addressing Brooks' analysis. "What's the primary leadership leadership responsibility in this scenario. Completing the mission, General, he answered. Before that, she corrected gently. Brooks paused, reconsidering. Taking care of your people. Exactly, she nodded. Mission success flows from effective leadership of people. In Ghost operations, I spent more time understanding my pilots than studying enemy capabilities. The casual reference to her legendary service, now with context that she had led teams rather than operating alone, landed differently than it would have weeks earlier. After the seminar concluded, Brooks approached Mitchell as she gathered her materials. General, may I ask you something? Go ahead, Captain. That night at the club, you could have embarrassed me publicly, made an example of me. Why handle it the way you did? She considered his question thoughtfully. Captain Brooks, the Air Force succeeds when pilots learn from their mistakes rather than being destroyed by them. Leadership means creating opportunities for growth, not just demonstrating superiority. Is that why you requested me for the stealth training? I requested you because you demonstrated something valuable, she replied. You changed your assessment when presented with new evidence. That's surprisingly rare, even among pilots trained to adapt to changing conditions. As she prepared to leave, she added, your tactical thinking has improved significantly since the stealth training. Keep developing those instincts. The professional acknowledgement, earned rather than given as consolation, meant more than any dramatic moment of redemption could have. That evening, Brooks found himself at the club again, but his approach had completely changed. Instead of dominating conversations with loud stories and demonstrations, he sat quietly with Colonel Harrison, focused on learning rather than impressing. General Mitchell was there as well, following her usual routine at the same corner table where their first encounter had occurred. As before, she sought no attention, yet her presence commanded natural respect from everyone in the facility. Brooks watched as various officers nodded respectfully as they passed her table, each interaction brief but meaningful. The recognition she received wasn't based on rank or position, but on earned respect for proven capability. As Mitchell completed her drink and prepared to leave, she passed Brooks's table. She didn't speak, but offered a subtle nod of acknowledgement, professional recognition between aviators rather than personal reconciliation. The gesture represented something important about military culture at its best: the possibility of growth, learning, and earned respect, regardless of how relationships begin. Later, as Brooks reflected on his transformation since that first encounter, he realized that Mitchell had given him something more valuable than advanced training or professional opportunities. She had demonstrated what excellence looked like when it didn't need to announce itself, when it simply existed and let results speak. The most powerful lesson wasn't about gender or assumptions, though those were important. It was about recognizing that true capability often exists in forms we don't expect, and that wisdom sometimes comes from the most unlikely sources. Brooks's journey from hotshot pilot to developing aviator hadn't required dramatic gestures or public humiliation. It had required honest self-assessment, willingness to learn, and the courage to admit when initial judgments were wrong. As he left the club that evening, Brooks understood that he would carry these lessons throughout his Air Force career and beyond. The encounter with Ghost had changed more than his perspective on women in combat roles. It had fundamentally altered his understanding of leadership, respect, and what it truly meant to be an elite pilot. Have you ever met someone who changed your entire worldview with just a few words? Someone whose quiet excellence challenged everything you thought you knew? Share their story in the comments below. At Secrets Never Told, we believe the most powerful lessons often come from the most unexpected teachers.